Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Enneagram Type 5, and we're going to be specifically looking at this question of how do you get along with an Enneagram Type 5? So maybe some practical tips. We're coming up to the holiday season and we're going to be around family and friends. Maybe you got some fives in your family that might seem a little distant or reserved, and you want to break through that ice and make a good connection with them. Probably you might need a little help. So we're going to just look at a really simple little list from this book, the Enneagram Made Easy. And it's just a short little list. This is the book I started with when I started learning about the Enneagram a long time ago. And sometimes it's good to come back to the basics. And obviously, I didn't feel like it was enough, so I wrote down some other things that I think are important. But I want to go over this list and then, expand it a little bit, things I've learned over the years. Talking to and about and with Enneagram Type 5s. Now, just a reminder, in the description below is a link to my website, tomlahue.com. I do offer Enneagram coaching. It's essentially life coaching, but in that framework of the Enneagram. It's such a great tool to know more about ourselves and how to get along with others. So I do a lot of marriage coaching. Also on my website, you can sign up for classes. I have on-demand classes as well as live classes. I got one coming up in January, a live class on Enneagram coaching on Zoom. And also there's a free download. If you go to the store, one of my study guides, my ebooks on breaking free from procrastination. So if procrastination is one of those challenges for you, you can download that book for free on my store tab. Okay, so let's get into this list. How do you get along with Enneagram Type 5s? Now, I just want to, I don't have any grand plan here except just to go down the list and see what happens. Just talk about it. But let's start with this. How to get along with me. Now, remember, fives are called the investigators, the observers, and let's look at what is listed here and see what we think. Number one on this list is be independent and not clingy. Remember, fives, they do kind of operate like islands unto themselves a little bit. They like to see themselves as self-reliant, self-sufficient, independent, not necessarily needing a lot from others. Remember, their sin is not gluttony, it's greed or avarice. And so they like it when other people around them can be a little self-reliant and not need me so much. Like they want to be needed without being needed. If you're a five, see if that phrase resonates with you. I want to be needed. I want to be included. I want to be in the vicinity of the activity and be welcomed to the party, but I don't really want people to be smothering or intrusive. I certainly don't want to be engulfed by other people and their agendas. And fives tend to have very strong boundaries to keep that from happening to themselves. You say, I don't know if I'm a five or a nine. Sometimes nines can get stuck. Sometimes fives, I guess, but nines often could think that they're fives. But nines tend to end up engulfed into other people's agendas. And fives are very aware of that, and they tend to resist losing themselves or, being too obligated to other people. So be independent and not clingy. See yourself as a separate person who wants to have trade negotiations with me. We can have a relationship. But if you are clingy and smothering and intrusive and invasive and passive aggressive and highly needy, I think that five is probably going to walk away from you and maybe make you feel a little awkward. Okay, next is speak in a straightforward and brief manner. Speak in a straightforward and brief manner. Be logical. It's not that, that fives are necessarily always argumentative, but they tend to be logical and concise and deliberate and direct. And that may look sometimes argumentative, but I think if you have something to say to a five, probably just be direct, logical, and concise. In fact, you might even say what you're going to say and then ask them, do you understand what I'm saying? How would you say it? And they'll probably say something very logical, concise, and direct. So speak in a straightforward and brief manner. Be concise, be direct, be clear about what you want and clear about your expectations. Don't be passive aggressive. Don't be ambiguous. Again, nines tend to be very ambiguous and fives tend to be very direct and clear and straightforward. And so if you're stuck, I don't know if I'm a nine or a five. That's another way. Another way to think about it is, how do you feel about when things get awkward? Nines tend to hate it when things get awkward. They tend to try to keep everybody from being awkward. Well, I think what Uncle Rick was saying. Well, I think what Mary was saying. They try to smooth out awkward, where fives are much more okay with, I think, things being awkward or even making things awkward themselves. I'm not saying you specifically are awkward. Put the claws away. We're all friends here. Okay. So speak in a straightforward and brief manner, which I'm not really doing right now. Okay, here's the next one. I need time alone to process my feelings and my thoughts. So giving them some space. One of the love languages is time. Spending quality time together. And what you might find that's interesting with fives is it may not necessarily be spending quality time together as I need time in order to recover. I need time in order to recharge my batteries. I need time in order to process my emotions or process my thinking. And I need you to respect that time. And then when I'm ready to talk, when I'm ready to come out of the cave and share my thoughts and emotions and ideas with you, then I want your focus of your attention for that time, but I don't want to be overwhelmed by you or by your presence. So I need time alone to process my feelings and thoughts. And so I guess if you are in a relationship with a five, or you're at a holiday party, Christmas party, a Hanukkah party, whatever that is, you have parties with your friends and gatherings for the holidays, just recognize that this five doesn't want to be intruded on. So they may come across rude. They probably would to a two. They probably would come across rude or uncaring. But just, keep in mind, that five is probably thinking you're the one being rude by invading my space and trying to have all of this meaningless talk with me that is not important. I didn't come to you and interrupt you. I didn't come to you and talk while you have your phone out. You're coming into my space, talking to me, trying to build some kind of connection with me that I don't really need. I don't need a connection because I'm self-reliant, self-sufficient, and independent. And I think this might be one of the things to bring up here, is if you are in a relationship with a five, the last one it says here, I know I'm getting out of order, but I think it's interesting. Help me avoid my pet peeves: big parties, other people's loud music, overdone emotions, and intrusions on my privacy. And again, I remember when we went through the list on the best and the worst of fives. One of the things about them is they tend to be sensitive. And I think of that sensitivity of fives as being sensitive to all of this noise and all of this interaction and all of this demand for my attention. And so help fives protect those boundaries and understand those boundaries where they don't want to be surrounded and intruded on by others. While at the same time, I think there should be some encouragement for fives to not isolate themselves. So finding that balance, I think, is important. Respecting the fives need to be alone, while at the same time gently encouraging them away from what could end up as isolation. That is one of the fears, of what could happen to a five, is they could isolate themselves away from the very things in life that give us a lot of meaning and purpose and value, like relationships. And so I think if you're in a relationship with a five, like you're a parent of a five, let's say it that way. If you're a parent of a five, you want to respect your kids' self-sufficiency or their independence or their self-reliance or their need to be alone, whatever you want to call that, without maybe allowing them to just isolate themselves away from the world into the things that interest them. Which leads to kind of the next point here, that isn't on this list. I don't know how this is not on this list, but I feel like this should be almost maybe number one, is appreciate their knowledge and interest. Show a genuine interest in the things that five is interested in. That is not on this list anywhere. And to me, that's probably one of the best ways to connect with a five, is show a genuine interest in the things the 5 is interested in. And so if your 5 is interested in, paleontology, or is interested in astronomy, or interested in, even like Minecraft, or Harry Potter, or Star Wars, or whatever it is, even if it doesn't seem important to you, if your 5 person is important to you, then that's one of the ways to connect with a 5 is by entering into their world and appreciating them for their knowledge and information, and saying things like this. I mean, you might think that 5 isolates themselves and doesn't want to come out of their room, or doesn't really interact in conversations, but maybe you're going about it wrong. Like, maybe what you ought to try is when the 5 is telling you about whatever their interest is, car motors or carburetors or whatever it is, start leaning in and asking questions like this. Really? I didn't know that. And what else? Oh, wow. Well, who invented that? Is that really the best way to do such and such? And see, if you just show a little bit of interest in the things they're interested in, you might find that 5 really opening up to you and sharing far more than you ever imagined before. But you might say, yeah, but Tom, I'm not interested in carburetors. I'm not interested in T-Rexes and dinosaurs. I'm not interested in, in Vulcans versus Klingons, or whatever it is. Well, you may not necessarily be interested in the content that 5 is sharing with you, but you are interested in having a relationship with them. And so, it's kind of akin to asking this 5 to be more affectionate. Maybe they're not a very affectionate person, but you like, I need affection in my life. So how come Dr. Tom tell my 5 husband to be more affectionate with me? Well, he's not really interested in that. But you see how it's still necessary and important to have a healthy relationship. One of the things we all need is affection. We all need, a lot of things. That's another video. But you get the idea, right? Show an interest in the things they're interested in, and try to make yourself pay attention and recognize that you are loving them in this way. Say, yeah, but I'm just not interested. Oh, I know, but do you love this person? Then you got to take an interest in the things that interest them, because you want to make a connection with them. I don't know why that's not in this book. That seems so obvious to me. Okay, I need time alone to okay, remember that if I seem aloof, distant, and arrogant, it may be that I'm feeling uncomfortable. Okay, remember 5s are a fear type, and they don't look necessarily like a fear type, but afraid of being intruded on, afraid of being obligated to other people, afraid of other people invading their space, afraid of not having answers or information, or being perceived as a person who doesn't know, not competent. So there's a lot of things that I think 5s, you can make a case that there's a fear of. Look at this date. Look at this picture. They're both, both these people in this couple are reading books back to back, and they say, this is the best date I ever had. Okay. I can imagine like a 5 and a 2 could be speaking 2 totally different languages here. And yet somehow even 5s and 2s can come together and have a great relationship. 5s and 5s, 5s and 9. I mean, I've seen 5s with probably every type. So I don't know if there's a best type for you, but just maybe healthy. Healthy would be good. All right, next is make me feel welcome, but not too intensely. How do you like that? Or I might doubt your sincerity. So make me feel welcome, make me feel included, invite me to the game, to play the game, invite me to the party, but don't be too aggressive. Don't be invasive, intrusive, don't obligate me, respecting my boundaries, respecting my right to say no. But still I want to be invited, still I want to be included. You might think this 5 is very withdrawn, so you don't ask them anymore. Well, they always keep to themselves, so we just don't even invite them anymore. Well, they've got feelings. They're a real human being. They've got feelings, and maybe those feelings are getting hurt because they're no longer being invited to things. So make me feel welcome, but not too intensely. So, hey, how's it going? What do you do? Fantastic. All right. And then maybe that's it. That's all they need. Just a little introduction, and that's all they need. And they're not necessarily, again, being rude because they don't do a lot of this small talk. Because they could probably get the reputation. People think that they're rude or indifferent or uninterested or apathetic. And maybe that sometimes is the case, honestly, maybe sometimes. But I think sometimes they're just self-reliant and self-sufficient and independent. Okay, so I become irritated when I have to repeat things. If I become irritated when I have to repeat things, it may be because it was such an effort for me to get my thoughts out in the first place. So I think there's like, be a little patient. Be a little patient. If you ask a 5, like imagine this family is all getting together and they're talking after Christmas, about what are we going to do with grandma? What are we going to do with mom? We got to put her in a home, and then the 5 is just sitting there listening to all this, taking it all in. And then you say, well, Roger, what do you think we should do? And realize like that 5 might need a little more time to process. They may feel like everybody is like, you know, pushing on them for a response. I think just make sure you give the 5 some time to process the information. And they may say something that feels very rude, but often they're not trying to be rude. They may say something that is just very direct and straightforward about mom's condition. Like, let's face it, mom doesn't have, maybe 6 months left. And so, hey, Roger, how could you say that? I think 5s can be very direct and deliberate and if they could come across, you guys could come across a little bit like unaffected or detached. And that sometimes can be a really good thing. Like, in order to be logical and to make logical decisions, we do need to be a little detached. But I think that it could be offensive to all of the, caring, soft, loving people at the table when Roger says, well, let's face it, mom's probably got like 6 weeks left if she doesn't go before that. And so, like, how could you speak about your mom like that? Oh, I think 5s could probably get frustrated and shut down in these kinds of interactions. So just recognize, you're dealing with Sherlock Holmes here. That's the archetype here is Sherlock Holmes. How can we face a decision when we don't face the clear objective reality? We must face reality and define reality before we can make any kind of logical decisions. Yes, but I can't believe you would, and so the feelings sometimes of others could be frustrating to a 5. Okay. Don't come in like a bulldozer. Don't come at me like a bulldozer. Don't overwhelm them. Encourage them to open up, encourage them to interact, encourage them to share their feelings and their vulnerabilities without, bulldozing them over or without pushing too hard on their boundaries. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Respecting their boundaries. Help me avoid my pet peeves. We already talked about that. Big parties, loud music. Again, 5s can be very sensitive. They probably wouldn't see themselves as being very sensitive, but interesting. Here's a couple more things I wrote down that should be on the list. Don't be unstable. Be predictable. Be dependable. 5s tend to be stable, predictable, dependable, and they appreciate that in their partners, I think, and in relationship with others. Is predictable, dependable, and reliable. Be calm and balanced. Respect their boundaries. Respect and celebrate their unique ideas or their unique ways of seeing things. 5s often see things from outside the box. They often see things in just a different way. They just do. They just see the world in a different way. They see complex things in a different way. They tend to see relationships between things that maybe the rest of us don't see. And when they share their unique perspective, when they share their way of seeing things, then you want to try to listen, understand, and respect, and even like appreciate, like validate that. Say, wow, that's a very interesting way to see that. 5s often are very concrete thinkers as well. The coach says, line up on that line, fellas, and all the team lines up on the line, and the coach does his little motivational speech, right? And then he says, all right, now let's have a great game. And all the kids run out onto the field except for one. And who is it? Oh, it's a 5. And why are they there on the line? Because the coach never said, get off the line. He said, have a good game. He said, line up on the line. And then he talked a little bit, and then he said, have a good game, and everybody ran away. I don't know why everybody's running away. He didn't say leave the line. So 5s tend to be very concrete thinkers like that, which can sometimes help make them very misunderstood by the rest of us. Logical, but non-confrontational. Some 5s, might be a little more confrontational. If they have that tri-type 5-8, 5-8-3, 5-8-4, that kind of thing. But a lot of times 5s are more transactional and logical and not necessarily trying to be argumentative. They might like a good debate, especially if you have like an INTP or an ENTP, if you know Myers-Briggs. ENTP is literally called the debater. So if you have a 5-8-4, or 5-8-3, and they are an INTP, you probably got a debater there, especially, if they're a 5-wing 4, for example. The iconoclast. Help them stay connected. Help them not to isolate themselves. Let's see. Any other notes here that I missed? Independent, private, self-sufficient, self-reliant. Need me, but don't need me. Need me, but don't need me too much. Don't be ambiguous. Don't be intrusive. Don't smother me. Don't overwhelm me. Encourage me without pushing on me. Oh, there's one last section here. It just has this little kind of like paragraph that says, 5s at their best in relationships are kind, perceptive, open-minded, self-sufficient, and trustworthy. Kind, perceptive, open-minded, self-sufficient, and trustworthy. 5s at their worst in a relationship are contentious. There's that debative, argumentative thing. Contentious, suspicious, withdrawn, and negative. They are on their guard against being engulfed. Like the fear that I'm going to lose myself to mom and her agenda, or lose myself to other people's calendars and plans for me, and I've got to remain independent and push back, or become invisible, and just sort of disappear from the group or disappear from the event. Well, that's all really good stuff. I hope it's helpful if you live with a 5, love a 5, trying to get along with a 5. We're about to do Christmas and all these holidays with your 5. Try to love them, give them some space, reaffirm your connection and your love for them without being too intrusive. Try to be interested in the things they're interested in. I think things are going to go really good for you. Thank you guys. Thanks for watching the video. I hope it's helpful. Be kind to one another. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out this video that I'm recommending and this playlist if you want more information about 5s. And I'll see you next time, and be present to life, guys.